guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. And this guy's story, this is something many of you guys will definitely be able to relate to. This is a story about a guy who pretty much, when he was younger, was rejected by a woman he really liked. But then later on in life, she is now interested in him now that he obviously has resources and is doing well for himself. And he's moved up on the totem pole in terms of value, so to speak, while she has gone down on the totem pole in terms of her value. And this goes back to his high school story, and I'm going to get more into this, why you'll see in the story why she claimed to reject him and all that. And it just goes to show you guys, as I've talked about many times before, I warn you about how when you're younger, guys typically are on the bottom of the totem pole. Okay, unless you are born into a family that's got money. So like when you're in high school and college, you can have, because of your parents, a fancy car and the best clothes and a cool house with a pool that people can come over and do pool parties too. Or you're naturally good looking, you're popular, so therefore you got status. Those type of guys don't have a problem getting girls. Okay, we all been there, we all know this. But for the rest of us that were just average Joes, we're at the bottom of the totem pole for quite some time, Meanwhile, women, they're in their prime, teens and 20s, they're at the top of the totem pole. And the better looking they are, the higher they are. But as time goes on, we rise on the totem pole in terms of value because we get our lives together. We start making something of ourselves, grow as a man in terms of strength and taking care of ourselves. And as we get older, we're higher up and more attractive to women. Meanwhile, their value, they get lower on the totem pole because men, in terms of attraction, men are attracted to what they see. So a younger woman in her prime is more desirable to us, but the older she gets, she's less desirable. And so what happens is the same girls that won't give certain guys, the low man on the totem pole, the time of day when they're younger, they're then after them when they're older because the guys they really want don't want them anymore. So I warn you guys all the time, be careful. Be careful of that because you don't want to be used, okay? And this guy's story is a perfect example of how they will come a knocking later on in life. And it's definitely very satisfying for guys that recognize what's going on. But anyhow, I've said enough here. I'm going to get into this story and you're going to see what I'm talking about here. So it starts off, he says, SSM, I'm a big fan of your channel. I felt compelled to write in due to something you said in one of your videos from a number of months back. You informed your audience that if they have an ex that we weren't good enough for in our distant past, she'll look for us and she'll reach out to us once her options dwindle down. 100% true. If it hasn't happened to us yet, then it will eventually to us someday. Guess what, gentlemen? SSM is absolutely correct. I learned that lesson a number of years before I even found and took the RP. For the sake of online anonymity, I'll be quoting Bon Jovi in order to preface my story with a slight disclaimer. It's all the same, only the names have changed. Bon Jovi fan. In high school, I moved out of state and started 10th grade in a new state where I attended a new school where I didn't know anybody. This was also the richest public high school in the new state where I was living in. Most of the kids at the school came from families that made six figures or more. And that was obviously a lot more money back when this dude was in high school. Many of them even drove BMWs and cool fancy sports cars. There was a pretty girl in my English class that year named, let's just call her Julia. Okay, so Julie and I started talking, and it turned out that she was new to the state too, and she was from the same city and state where I was from. That gave us stuff to talk about, which was cool. Being a pretty girl, though, she made friends more easily and quickly than I did. Well, absolutely. She's a pretty girl. It's going to be easy for her to get people to want to be around her. Anyway, one day I got the courage to ask her out, and she actually said yes. We went out Friday after school, and it was a decent time, but I pretty much knew she wasn't as attracted to me as I was her. Needless to say, I wasn't surprised when she called me on the phone the next day to let me know that she wasn't interested in seeing me anymore. Wow, just like that. Guess what her excuse was? Her excuse was that she was interested in having you-know-what, sex, but because I was a virgin, she would be seeing other guys who weren't virgins. That actually came up in the discussion on the date. Okay. I mean, you could have lied, but then again, the second you would have a roll in the hay, she would know like that. And then you could flip a coin whether she would have continued or not. But you were young. I would have gladly given her my V card, but she clearly wasn't interested in taking it. Even at 16 years old, I understood that, and honestly, it was a painful blow to my ego. Yeah, that sucks. That'd be a painful blow to anybody's ego. I was pretty embarrassed. I also understood to some degree that due to the fact that I wasn't in the same socioeconomic class that the majority of the student body at the school belonged to, I wouldn't have much of a romantic life with any of the girls at this school. I'd seen other girls I was attracted to ride in the passenger seats of khaki pant wearing preppy boys with BMWs and sports cars. This is what I was talking about. When you're younger, if you are in a family that's got money, and part of the parents' way of showing off their wealth is by having their a-hole teenage kids drive expensive cars and the best clothes and all that type of stuff, it's hard to compete against that because girls are going to be drawn to those guys because they obviously can ride around in the passenger seat of the sports cars and get to go places and use them for resources. It starts that early. You all know this. And so the deck is stacked against guys, again, average Joes like him, low man on the totem pole. I was the same way, guys. So I've been there. I get it. Anyway, from time to time, I'd hear stories about Julia hooking up with other dudes at the school. Also, because I sat next to her in English class, I'd overhear her tell stories about what she did over the weekend with dudes from other schools to the other girls sitting near us in class. So she was a first-class carousel rider. After her rejection, and with the reason she gave me for the rejection, I was kind of embarrassed. Since she was cool with the other girls in class, who sat in the same section of the classroom, I decided to make myself invisible. I quit talking in class for any reason unless the teacher called on me. I didn't look at anybody or talk to anybody, hoping to just make myself invisible. Then one day, a girl who sat near me in class tapped me on the shoulder and passed me a note. I read the note and it said, "Why did you become such an a-hole?" So pretty much after the whole Julia rejection, you just kind of close yourself off and don't want to talk to anybody. That kind of reminds me of me in high school. I hated high school. Most of the people in my high school were complete a-holes. I had my gang of friends, and I dated girls, but believe me, I was not Mr. Popularity. Okay? People that, if somebody from high school saw me on here, they would be shocked at this channel because, I just wasn't a big talker and out there. But, I hated high school. The day I graduated high school was one of the happiest days of my life. I wanted to get the F out of there. And that was my mission, and I most certainly did. But, unfortunately, dude, I get you not wanting to talk to these people and feel like you got nothing to do with them. But on the other hand, it could be perceived or could have been perceived that she got to you. You see what I mean? So you never want to let a woman see that her rejection of you got your butt hurt. Looking back, you should have just kept being yourself and talking to other people. There probably would have been girls that would have liked you there, even if you weren't rich. They probably would have been sick of the rich dudes. But anyhow, you were young, and I did things too when I was young. Anyhow, the girl asked him in a note, why was he such an a-hole? Of course, I was baffled. I replied, how am I an a-hole? I mind my own business, and I don't bother anybody. I wouldn't explain myself. Never explain yourself. You think bad boys would explain themselves to a bunch of chicks why they are the way they are? I would just laugh it off. Then they showed the note to the other girls in the area, including Julia. Then they quit writing notes and just told me, they said, at the beginning of the year, you were sweet and you used to talk to us. Now you just ignore us like you think you're better than everybody. They don't like not getting the validation from you. And probably in a way you're kind of a mystery to them because you're a new guy. I reassured them that I didn't think that I was better than anyone. I wouldn't have done that. I didn't want to bring up my past experience with Julia and how I was afraid that she'd say something to these girls in class about why she didn't want to be my girlfriend, even though she was openly S-word active. Well, I hate to break it to you, but she probably told them anyway. Girls can't keep secrets and that type of stuff. But let's be honest here, most people walking around high school, everybody was a virgin at one point, so it is what it is. But I get it. I remember what it was like to be that age. I was afraid that these other pretty girls I have to see in English class every day would look down on me. I think that I naturally understood the concept of pre-selection. Julie was pretty, but she wasn't the hottest chick in the room either, but she was on friendly terms with all these other girls. So I just explained away by saying that I never made very many friends since moving to that school, so I was just doing my own thing. Then these girls told me that they were my friends, LOL. No, they weren't, but at the time, I was comforted by the lie. It was actually pretty difficult to socially isolate myself every day in that class. Now here they are going out of their way to demand attention and social interaction with me. It was like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. And then Julia started talking to me regularly. She even added me to her AOL and Yahoo instant messengers. So because the other girls, who are obviously better looking than her, are paying attention to you, now Julia is starting to be paying more attention to you. Isn't that interesting how that works? It's a load of crap, but it is what it is. That's what they do. At the end of the school year, Julia moved back to the city and state where they were both originally from. I never got to date her again or anything else like that. A year or two after graduation, MySpace blew up and everybody was getting on there. Julie and I even ended up adding each other on there even though we were never interacted. In our early 20s, she had a kid with some dude. There's a big surprise. You spend enough time riding the carousel like she was, eventually she's going to get pregnant. She was still living in our home city, and I was still living in my new city. By then, I had a career at a Fortune 500 company where I still work, and I drive a Mustang, and I was doing a lot better with the ladies. Awesome. Good for you. You were the low man on the totem pole when you were younger. You rose. Now you're working at a Fortune 500 company, which is awesome. Doing well. Driving a Mustang, which, by the way, is a badass car, I might add. And doing well for yourself. And let's see who comes back into his life. Fast forward in time to when we were at 27 years old. It's 4:30 in the morning on Christmas Eve. Julia adds me on Facebook. I haven't seen her or spoken to her in years. I accepted her friend request, then she messages me. She told me that she missed me and that she never stopped thinking about me, and she remembered that around the time she got pregnant, she heard that I was dating our friend from high school's younger sister. And she remembers feeling some pretty intense jealousy despite carrying another man's child at the time. Isn't this interesting? Now she's 27, so she's getting close to that 3-0. Her prime is going away quick. She has a kid, no father, no husband. All of a sudden, this guy's doing well. All of a sudden, she's reaching out to him. And I missed you so much, and I've been thinking about you this whole time. No, she hasn't. She's looking for options. She's looking for guys that can provide and have resources. See? Obviously, I was confused and perplexed by this, and I asked her, why did she quit seeing me after only one date back in high school? Her answer was interesting. These are her exact words to the best of my recollection. She said, apparently, I wouldn't have quit seeing you if you'd had a car. I had problems with my parents, especially my father, and I still do. I used to try to fill the void in my life with sex. So when boys with cars would come to my house at night, after my parents went to sleep, I would sneak out and go mess around with these guys in their cars. Back then, that's where I accumulated most of my numbers. This guy dodged a bullet because he didn't want a girl that's constantly rolling the hay with other dudes, and she probably would cheat on him anyway. Hearing that from her own mouth as an adult validates the insecurities I felt in high school regarding me being separated by socioeconomic status from the vast majority of other kids at that school. It's like the way you always say, SSM, trust your gut. My gut was telling me the truth back then, and my insecurities weren't necessarily a product of my imagination. No, you were dead on. You knew darn well pre-selection, you knew darn well back then those guys that wealthy families, they're driving the BMWs and the fancy cars and all these other things. They got a way huge advantage. But I'm willing to bet you those same dudes, oftentimes the so-called cool kids in high school, later on in life, they're effing losers. They don't have shit going on. Now, if they come from wealthy families, they may be spoiled brats and maybe F-ups, but they definitely will have some backing. But a lot of the guys who are the cool guys in high school are total losers. How many of you guys watching this know exactly what I'm talking about? It goes on. She then went on to tell me that she never married her baby daddy, and he was a bum and uninvolved in the kid's life and didn't pay child support. What a surprise. She also kept trying to convince me that she was always interested in me and wished that more could have happened with us. This is news to him. This is complete BS. If she was in a place in life where, let's just say, she was comfortable, had decent money, had a husband, or just even didn't have a husband but was able to have means to take care of her kid, she probably wouldn't be as interested in this guy. But she figured, hey, Why not? He's doing well. I rejected him then. Maybe he still likes me. I didn't really buy that, even though it sounded good, and a part of me wished that she was telling the truth. So just out of curiosity, I asked her, why was she always interested in me? She says, you were different. You weren't like anyone else I knew at the time. You were a little bit weird, but in a good way. I like that kind of weird. Well, let me tell you guys, this must be satisfying for this guy, because after what happened, and he obviously felt like crap about it. I mean, look, we all go through rejection, don't get me wrong, and that's just how it is. Shit happens. But when it's for reasons like that, like because of you're obviously don't have the fancy cars and stuff like that hurts in a different way. So it's nice. It's a good, satisfying feeling when somebody comes back and now they want you now that you're doing well. You're smart enough not to give them the time of day, but it's still a nice feeling. It's good payback. Truth be told, she had a point. I was kind of weird being a lower middle class kid who wore all black, kept to himself and listened to metal at a predominantly rich school filled with preppy kids. Anyway, I declined her advances. Good. Good for you. The story is almost over. A couple months later, my younger brother passed away. That sucks. I'm sorry, dude. My younger brother had moved back to the city-state where we were from and where Julia was living. We still have family in the city/state, so my parents and I traveled up there to have his funeral and handle his affairs. We stayed with family. Since I was going to be out there anyway, I contacted Julia and asked and wanted to see if she wanted to see me while I was out there. Why? You got your satisfaction. She was obviously into you. I wouldn't have done that, but okay, I guess you just wanted to see in person. Her obviously wants you and see if she'd try to make a move, and you can obviously enjoy rejecting her. Well, you got a good story to share. She agreed and took a day off to spend with me. Since I didn't have my own car there due to me traveling with my parents, she picked me up at my relative's house and went to the mall where we had lunch and did some shopping together. We even shared ice cream at Dairy Queen. It was a good time for the most part. I remember thinking that the chemistry was much better on this occasion than we had on that date back in high school. Yeah, because she's more into you than you are into her now. You obviously got back to, you met up with her just for the fun of it, for the satisfaction to see this chick's what she's like and see if she's into you. And obviously she is, and the reason you're having a better time is because she's more into you this time around because you have the upper hand. Says, I remember thinking the chemistry, blah, blah, blah. Julie and I looked almost the same as we did back in high school. Both of us aged better than most, even now that we were in our mid-30s. However, she unapologetically belched in front of me numerous times without saying excuse me. I quit eating the ice cream that we were sharing because I was kind of grossed out. Yeah, this goes to show you her kind of level of class and manners. Someone can burp accidentally once, but multiple times, and then you actually say, oh, excuse me, that says a lot. When she dropped me back at my relative's house, I got the vibe that she wanted to kiss, but I pretend not to notice and just made a beeline into the house. Yeah, I would have gotten out of there. We're not in contact anymore, but once in a blue moon, I'll look at her social media. She's still good looking, and her son is growing up. She's still unmarried, and she's had numerous boyfriends. No surprise there. And she's probably one of these gals that's like, where have all the good men gone? Where are all the good men? No men want to settle, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, she had opportunities, no doubt, like with this guy, to have good guys, but was much more interested in with the cool crowd. And now look at her. I mean, he said her ex, the baby daddy, is a bum, not contributing to the child support and all those things. That's called karma. She says, there are several other old flames that tried to come back in my life over the years as well, but this was one of the more perplexing anecdotes that I've ever had to share. I clearly dodged a bullet with this one. It was doomed from the start anyway. The point is that SSM is absolutely correct about exes reaching out to you later in life and trying to rekindle the very flame that they extinguish when their options are reduced. Thank you for reading. Well, you're welcome, bro, and I appreciate you sending me your story, and that's a very satisfying feeling. I've experienced the same thing. I've had women that rejected me when I was younger, and then later on in life when I had got my life together and I was rising in the totem pole, then they're interested. And it was, and by the way, with the exception of one who I just literally hooked up with and never talked to her again, The rest, I didn't give the time of day. So it's definitely a very satisfying feeling. So good for you there, and good for you that you're doing well for yourself. Keep it on. And I will not be contacting Julie anymore, or whatever the hell her real name is, as well as any other exes that come back. Because like I said in the beginning, guys, they will come back. Mark my words. Because when times are tough, that's when they come back. I mean, I read countless stories that when COVID started last March, when there was varying degrees of lockdowns, at least here in the United States, all of a sudden, all these old flames started reaching out to guys. Hey, all that type of stuff. Hey, stranger, that type of shit. Why? Because a lot of people were fearful of losing their jobs or lost their jobs. You know the story. This is recent history here. Not an accident, so you can't fall for that. So for you guys that obviously weren't doing so well for yourselves in terms of like you were the low man in the totem pole when you're younger, as you get older, particularly in your 30s, and you start doing well like this guy, be careful. Don't think all of a sudden like, wow, I'm a stud now because all these women are after me that wouldn't give me the time of day when I was younger. The reason is because just like this Julia character, her options are limited. She doesn't have unlimited options like she did when she was high school and college or in her 20s. So understand that and just be careful. Okay, just be careful about that and be very serious about the screening process. Yeah, if you want some easy hookups, that's fine. Just be sure to wear protection and dispose of the protection and handle yourself accordingly. But just understand that. So anyhow, guys, that is it for today. Great story. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.